Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The 12 Sunnahs of sex, according to Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi. So Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi was a student of Imam al-Ghazali, the famous Persian Sufi polymath theologian, the great scholar of Islam, the Hujjatul Islam. And Ibn al-Arabi was a Maliki scholar, and he spoke about the 12 highly recommended acts in relation to sexual intimacy. And this wasn't uncommon for Muslim scholars to write about not only sexual rulings, but sexual etiquettes. He wrote a book called Ahkam al-Jima, the rulings pertaining to sexual intimacy, where he laid out the obligations as well as the recommended acts as well as the etiquettes. Now, his rulings were based on the Quran, the Hadith, the authentic Hadith, but also he did rely upon some weak Hadith and some customs of his time. So some of the 12 recommended acts were not necessarily based on authentic hadiths, but they may have been based on weak hadiths or some of the customs of his time. So these are the 12 sunnahs that he recommends. Number one, to recite a prayer before having intercourse. Number two, to engage in much foreplay with one's wife. Number three, to sexually satisfy the wife so that she has an orgasm and her desire has been fulfilled. Number four, to avoid facing the qibla when having intimate relations with one's wife. Number five, to avoid being completely naked during intercourse. Number six, to avoid staring at the woman's private parts when intimate. Number seven, to clean oneself with a cloth or handkerchief after intercourse, especially after one ejaculates. Number eight, to avoid having intercourse with a breastfeeding woman. Number nine, to avoid engaging in excessive talk when making love. Number 10, to recite a prayer after intercourse where you praise Allah and for the blessing of intimacy and your family. Number 11, to perform the ritual washing of ghusl after one has intercourse, especially if you want to sleep. And number 12, to not enter one's house suddenly at night, especially if you've been away on a trip or you have been absent for a period of time, just so your wife has time to groom herself and prepare herself for you. And one of Jalal ad-Din Asyuti's students, who was a great scholar, an Egyptian scholar called Abdul Qadir al-Shadhili, he said he wrote a commentary of these rulings that Ibn al-Arabi laid out. And he said, God willing, I will explain each of these sunnahs from the words of religious scholars, saints, hadith specialists, Quran commentators, and medical doctors. And he wrote a book called Tashnif al-Asma bi Shar Ahkam al-Jima'. So that was a book written by Abdul Qadir ibn Muhammad ibn Ahmad al-Shadhili, who was famously known as Mu'adhin al-Maliki. He was a Maliki scholar and he was also a student of the great Shafi'i scholar Jalal ad-Din Asyuti, who wrote over 20 books on sex and intimacy in a genre known as erotology. In Arabic is known as ilm al-bah or ilm al-nikah. So this was a popular genre amongst Muslim scholars where they wrote sex manuals primarily in primarily aimed at men to teach men how to sexually satisfy their wife and the importance of women's sexual satisfaction. So this wasn't a taboo topic for many of the Muslim scholars, but I just wanted to highlight some of the sunnahs or the recommended acts in relation to sexual intimacy as laid out by Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, who was a student of Imam al-Ghazali. Assalamu alaikum.